Hey guys, welcome to another video and thanks for tuning in again. I want to say that thank you to all of you that have subscribed to the channel. It goes a long way. It really helps to show that, what I'm doing is helping those of you that are looking to make your dreams a reality. And like I always say, this really comes from a place of providing something that I never had. Okay. And considering I have gained a lot of experiences, knowledge in this industry that I'm, passionate about. And I know that a lot of passionate people out there looking for information on how to get started, how to get into aviation, how to get scholarships, how to get programs, how to secure, go through those interviews and ace them, all that stuff, right? And that's why I have this channel. So if you have subscribed to this channel, I want to say that I just don't talk about Speedbird, okay? Although I have been making a lot of videos on that lately, and that's because, they are pertinent information that I believe are vital to those of you that are going through that process. And I know that, I get people from different parts of the world that are asking, can they apply to the program? Can they qualify for it? And like I always say, one of the things that makes me sad is the fact that not everybody can apply to these programs, unfortunately. But I will do my best to bring out the ones that apply to people right out there, especially when I find out about these programs. In my next video, I'll be talking about one that applies to people in the EU region, because of the UK, Brexit, all that stuff going on. I know that some people can only work within the UK now, and some can work in the EU. I really don't know how the regulations work, but I know that this one really applies to people in the EU region. I've talked about this program in the past, but they have a new program which I'll be talking about in my next video. So if you're in the EU region and you're looking for opportunities in those areas, that next video may be for you. This one is to focus on TUI, right? For those of you that are going through the process, I am so excited for you guys. I know that some of you did your interviews. I heard how difficult and challenging it was, but somehow some of you still managed to pull it off, and I'm really happy for you. And you guys are now moving on to that final stage. So let me just share my screen with you real quickly here. So most of you have gone through, stage 4 now. And like I've, based on the information I've been afforded, all right, is that it was challenging, it was difficult. And again, like I always say, you never give up, right? Because sometimes you just never know what they are really looking for. Sometimes it's not just about doing well in the math, because it's different aspects, right? There are different aspects to this assessment, and that's why they give you opportunities to shine in different areas. And at the end of it all, it comes down to a score, right? For those of you that went through the Speedbird last year, majority of you that got to the final stage, you kind of have an idea, because you're giving that feedback, right? You have an idea of how those things are graded, and that is something that I want you guys that didn't make it through to understand. Sometimes it's not about doing well in the math, although there can be a pass or fail stats involved in some of them. But one thing I want to say is that don't give up if you do not do well on one of those assessments, because what I've seen and what is common is this, that people do. That is, when you are given an assessment, all right, let's say you have 3 things to do. When you do your first one, and let's assume that you felt very challenged in that first thing, you end up carrying that weight of that, or of how you're feeling from that first assessment, and then you carry it all through the rest of the assessment. And that's something I always say to my students when I was instructing. I don't really instruct full-time or even part-time anymore, but when I used to do that, and I still have my CFIs, by the way, my licenses, they're still current. I keep them current. But what I'm trying to drive at is, when you're doing your check ride, for example, if for any reason you mess up on something, try to put that thing behind you and move on, right? Do as much as you can not to dwell in that phase of failure, because you would end up carrying that spirit or that feeling with you all through the rest of the assessment. And that could end up being the reason why you end up failing the assessment. back to TUI. A lot of you went through the math. The feedback was that it was difficult. It was extremely hard. But somehow, if you've been able to put that behind you and you're able to shine in your group assessment or your group exercise, you're able to shine on the interview, those might make you enough points to just make the cut. Anyway, I don't want to preach to you guys, right? I'm not going to preach to you, but what I just want to say is this. It's a very unique story of some of you that went through it and you're like, it's unbelievable that you even got to the final, the stage 5, the final assessment now, right? Because of the fact that you just didn't believe that you did well on the stage 4. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's all about to challenge you to see how well you can still shine even in difficulties. So, like I said, I'm not going to preach. If you're finding value in this one, please don't forget to drop a like. Those likes goes a long way. Now, let's talk about stage 5. All right, the stage 5 is a flying test with our TUI airline training teams. This will be in the UK-based simulator where your flying aptitude will be assessed. Hey, this is where you are being assessed on some things. If you think about pilot competencies, right? Flight path management automation, flight path management manual, situational awareness. Of course, you still be assessed on your communication skills, your workload management. Of course, you still assessed on your decision making and problem solving. So it is important that you guys need to go and think about those competencies, but it's also important to be able to put them to use in the heat of the battle, in the sense that when you're being put in this simulator, it is important to be able to still think through how you plan your flight, right? Think through, I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I do not know what to expect. I don't know what the scenario will be for that day. But the point here is they will be assessing you in these areas. Now, there's one thing that is not always mentioned in the pilot competencies, and that is CRM, crew resource management. You're going to be put into a simulator, which I believe is going to be a 737 simulator. It will really help you if you had a simulator to kind of just understand, like Microsoft Flight Sim, X-Plane, depending on what you can get access to. It will be helpful to practice just understanding the MCP, the mode control panel, understanding the buttons, pushing the buttons, understanding what they do if you're on a turn to heading, climb, descent, so that way you're not struggling with that part. It is also important to have the hand-eye coordination skills, right? And that's where the flight path management skill or assessment area comes in, because they will assess you on that. But your ability to climb, descend, turn, and still do your mental math, that will be important, because they might tell you to climb, to descend and maintain an altitude within a specified time. Those things should be easy to you guys that are not new to this all scenarios that could be given to you. But one thing I want you to always keep in mind is your CRM skills, safety first, because if you're given a scenario where you have to make a decision, remember to think about your resources. You have the internal resources, you have the external resources. For your internal resources, you're thinking about the people that you work with, right? That you have that are readily accessible to you. So if you are the captain in the scenario, think about the first officer you have. Think about maybe if you have somebody in a jump seat, right? Think about the flight attendant or the cabin crew that you have. Think about the passengers you have on board. Depending on the scenario, right? Sometimes they give you an emergency scenario that requires maybe somebody getting sick. Think about, are there potential medical professionals on board the flight you're on? It all depends, right? I'm not going to lead you in the wrong direction by saying that I know exactly what you would be given, but it's important to just be able to think outside of the box while you're still trying to fly the plane. And that's where that crew resource management comes in. And that's where that workload management comes in. And that's where that situational awareness comes in. And that's where that problem solving and decision making comes in, right? The next thing that you have is the external resources, right? You think about the people outside of you, the ATC, the aircraft dispatcher, the aircraft maintenance guys on the ground, if the airline provides any other resource which they would have made known to you, right? Prior to you going into this scenario, I'm sure you should be able to use that information. Now, don't forget your external resources could also be things like the weather service stations, right? The list can go on, but think about everything that you're given, that you're presented with as a resource on that day. They might give you like a packet where it might be like a flight a flight plan, or with the weather packet, with the maintenance packet, or like a logbook. I don't know what it will give you, right? But the point here is those things are given to you for a reason. Everything you're given is given for a reason, right? They won't just give you things that are not necessary. And it's now your duty to be able to think through that actual scenario. And while you're trying to fly the plane, you're able to think outside of the box. Think of yourself as a manager of that flight. All right. And think like a pilot in command. Think like a captain. Okay. I know it might be intimidating, but that's what you want to do on that day. When you need something, you ask for it. Of course, politely, right? That's how you delegate tasks. If you need the person to read the checklist to you, if you need the person to reach the, they call it QRH, Quick Reference Handbook. If you need the person to read it to you or go through it, again, I sometimes I wish that I could be interacting with you guys like in a class or something, but that's why we have YouTube, right? YouTube University. But the point I'm trying to make is that I hope you guys are finding value in this. All right. The point I'm trying to make is it is very important for you to think like a pilot in command, like the captain of that flight. And don't be arrogant, be polite, but at the same time, carry everybody along. All right. That crew resource management, that team mindset is important. One other thing that I just wanted to add to this is that I kind of lost the train of my thought here. At the end of it all, right, you're going to be assessed on so many things. Now they've assessed your ability to communicate in different stages of the interviews. They've assessed your math skills and aptitude in other aspects, but aptitude to fly will be the important part here, amongst other things. So I don't want you to be too comfortable, all right, in preparing for this stage. I encourage you guys to go and start flying those flight sims, start doing some mental math stuff, communicate. Okay, that's what I was going to say. Aviate, communicate, and navigate. In any emergency situation, aviate first, which means fly the airplane, stabilize the plane. All right, make sure everything is under control. Next thing is to communicate, which is then to talk to the necessary people at the appropriate time. Now, of course, navigate, programming the box, getting directions, vectors, whatever it may be required. But always think in that order. And of course, safety is always number one. If I have more information to share with you guys, of course, I'll bring it to you. I just wanted to say a big congratulations to you guys that are getting to the final stage. I'm wishing you the best of luck, and I'll see you in the next one.